So a couple of years ago, I'm looking for a job and I ended up getting in contact with this recruitment company near where I live. And their job technically is to help me find a job. So whoever ends up hiring me, my new employer ends up paying a cut to this recruitment company. So it's in their interest for me to find a job. And this company, they send me along to a couple of interviews. Didn't really have to do anything to get the interviews, which was maybe a bit of a red flag, but it was a couple of different sales jobs. Kind of boring, like I'd be the guy on the phone making the cold calls, trying to sell people like insurance or advertising, whatever it was. And what made these interviews a little bit different was the fact that I wasn't the only one getting interviewed. It wasn't just me and the interviewer in a room together. It was a group interview. So I'm getting interviewed with 5 or 6 other guys who I'm kind of competing with for this one job. And that in itself is pretty scary to me because I don't feel like those environments suit me. Those like really competitive environments. Like I know technically every time you go for an interview you are competing with other people, but you know, rarely they're in the same room as you. Like you're not necessarily going to be able to see these people who are all up for the same job you're going for. It's kind of intimidating. And it's a bit fucked up because, you know, this recruitment company, I'm pretty sure they'd sent all the guys who were there at this interview. So it doesn't matter to them who gets the job, someone's going to get it. It's a win-win scenario for them. But they were giving me all this advice before the interview. And they said to me, Tom, like you're quiet, you know, we can tell you're confident, but you are a bit quiet. So you need to make sure you stand out in this interview. Make sure you're putting your hand up, make sure you're speaking up a lot, talk in a loud and confident way. Just make sure you're getting your point across. And again, this didn't feel that natural to me because I knew what was going to end up happening was they'd said the exact same thing to all of the guys in this room, some of them who were naturally more extroverted than me. And at every single one of these interviews, it was like all of us were just competing for this interviewer's attention. He'd be asking us like test questions and this and this. And all of us were just trying to do our best to speak the loudest, like a competition for who can contribute the most. And you know what would end up happening? I'd rush to get my words out so quickly that I didn't even think about like the answer too deeply. It was like, it felt like, you know, I could know the right answer, but if I didn't say it quick enough, then, you know, that's a loss. But I'll oftentimes end up getting the answer wrong. You know what actually happened to me one time at one of these interviews? And this guy running it was a fucking weirdo, man. Like he was some fucking young, eccentric startup CEO for some tech company. 10 minutes in, he kicks out half the people in the interview, including me, because we got the first question wrong. He said, "Sorry, you're out." And I was annoyed at that because I known that, you know, I could have taken a bit more time with that answer, but because I didn't want to like fade into the background, I rushed it. I actually went first out of all these guys, even though I wasn't feeling confident in my answer. So I got kicked out of this interview, despite the fact that it's these companies who specifically request a group interview. They're creating an environment that isn't like compatible with like thinking deeply and, you know, like a certain type of person. It's all about like, they want these dominant personalities. I'll tell you what they want. They want visible confidence. And in Western culture, there's a massive bias towards visible kinds of confidence, like dominant personalities, who can say the most words, who can be the most extroverted. And for me, I couldn't help but think after going to a bunch of these interviews, and I decided that, you know, why am I going for some fucking sales job anyway? I couldn't help think, what has this got to do with my ability to do the job anyway? Sales, yeah, maybe you have to be resilient, maybe you have to be like a talkative person. And I can do that. But what does my ability to like speak up more in some group interview have to do with like my ability to do the job? And it just felt fake. It felt like I'm performing. I'm not being myself. And that felt unfair to me. But you know what I've realised since then? I've realised that's a good thing. It's a good thing because these kinds of environments, they make themselves known very quickly. And I know very quickly that they're not for me. Because if someone can Because if someone can look at a quiet person, because if someone who can look at a quiet person and start jumping to all these conclusions, when they're someone who is very comfortable, because anyone who looks at a quiet person who might be extremely comfortable with silence and doesn't just want to rush his words out and fill the gap just for the sake of filling a silence, who, when they do talk, is very intentional and thoughtful about what they say, and they don't feel the need to over-explain themselves or self-promote endlessly to brag, and honestly, above all else, prefers to just let their actions talk instead of words. You know, someone who stands on business, who actually gets things done rather than just talking about that. If someone looks at that kind of person and thinks just because they're quiet and disregards all the other stuff, that this person is somehow weird or insecure or awkward, that's not an environment I want to work in or be a part of, you know? And you know, this is why quiet people get a hard time in society. They get misjudged by certain people. And it's not everyone, and we'll talk about that. It's not everyone, but certain people still have this outdated perception of quiet people. And you know where it comes from? Because quiet people don't give everything away. To some people, they can come across as a bit of a blank slate. And to the wrong type of person, that creates the opportunity for this person to project their own insecurities onto that person, onto this quiet person. And they think just because they don't immediately connect with this person, they haven't immediately given everything away, they don't know exactly who they're dealing with here, they think, oh, this person's insecure, this person's shy. That person might be fully comfortable in themselves. And I think oftentimes that's the case. This is the way that I feel about myself as I've gotten older, as I've grown in confidence. You know, I used to be shy. I've always been introverted. Does that mean I'm not confident now? I'm very confident. I'm just quiet confident. And I feel that quiet, confident people, they're often a lot more self-assured than these people who have that like visible confidence, who are trying to sell themselves to other people. The people who talk more than anyone else just to like fill silences, talk and talk and talk and talk, I often find them quite needy. And I'm at the point where I can see through them and know that, okay, you feel the need to talk like this because you're worried that people aren't going to pay attention to you otherwise. You don't think there's enough about you, or you're not self-assured enough to be comfortable on your own when people are not constantly validating your ego. Like, I'm a quiet person. I love being around other people. But if I'm on my own, if people are not talking to me, if I'm on the edge of a conversation, I'm chilling, man, like I'm having a good time in my own company, like whether other people are there or not, I'm fucking fine with that. I'm just chilling, man. And the other thing I'll say is, okay, where am I going with this? So I always thought that I had to change myself, that I had to erase this more introverted side of my personality and fill that gap with all these like traditionally extroverted traits to be this like visibly confident person. But the beautiful thing is I've like realized that kind of leaning into like my natural personality, which is like a quiet introverted person, it served me so well in like so many situations. And it's actually been like a real advantage to me in life. Like, you know, I'm not someone who wants to be rushing out my words. I don't want to be constantly talking. And when someone says something to me, I like to pause. I like to think about what to say. I like to process what they're saying so that the answer I give is more thoughtful and actually means something. And I've actually felt that's helped me connect with people like a lot better than if I just rushed out my words and said some bullshit for the sake of like just talking. And people appreciate that. The fact that I'm pausing, the fact that I'm taking my time to reply to them, to them that says that what they're saying actually is worthwhile. You know, it warrants some kind of deeper thought and consideration. I'm treating them as if they're someone important. And, you know, I do have this natural inclination to just shut the fuck up and listen. I don't find that difficult. I don't want to be talking all the time. And that's created space for people to confide in me and people to trust me with like all sorts of information and be someone that they can feel safe and comfortable around and really kind of deepen that bond. Like I'm very, very fucking close with all of my friends. I don't have shallow friends. And fuck man, like, you know, I just got tired of performing. Like that's how I would sum all this up. I got tired of performing, of putting on this like fake extroverted personality which drained me and was all about winning other people's approval. And I never expected it, but that's brought more people into my life because it's not needy. I'm not altering my personality to win the approval of others. I've become much less invested in what other people think of me. Like I said, I'm quiet and I love being around other people, don't get me wrong. But I've learned to enjoy my own company. I'm comfortable doing things on my own. Don't need to constantly be the center of attention. And that comes out in the way that I carry myself, my presence, the sense of like just being comfortable in the environment. I'm not looking for anything really. And I don't want to just turn this video into me like bragging about shit, but I never thought it would happen. But now I kind of get people who I notice are trying to almost win my approval. Like I see them almost doing too much. Even though like I feel like I'm quite easy to get on with, and you know, I'm not a judgmental person, but I see people like maybe who are like a tiny bit like unnerved by the fact that I'm just fucking calm and I'm not really like looking to win anyone's approval or make like a particular impression on anyone. I'm just kind of chill. And some people that unsettles and they think they kind of need to win my approval. I'm flattered, they feel the need to impress me. Never would have happened before. I would have been the guy in the other person's shoes, doing all this extra shit to impress people. And that's because I think Again, not to sound a bit cringe, but I think quiet people, quiet, confident people, they signal high status. The negotiator in a business deal, a CEO, they're not the one who's talking all the time. The ones who keep their cards quite close to their chest, because that's how they get the best possible deal. They maintain a strong negotiating position by shutting the fuck up strategically and not giving much away. They don't really react. I've seen this in effect. I've seen lots of powerful people who fulfill this kind of archetype. Also, in terms of the whole blank slate thing, like not giving everything away, some people who are shallow, they are going to project their own meaning onto that, but I've often found that there's an equally great number of people who find that kind of like mysterious and alluring. Like, I think the most interesting people I've met are the ones who allow themselves to reveal certain information, like slowly. They want to keep people guessing. That's helped me in my dating life or just making friends. It's cool when you don't know everything about someone. You come to your own conclusions. You create little stories in your head. All the coolest characters on TV are the ones with like, you just assume they have a tragic past. Maybe like you don't, it's never fully revealed who they are, but you kind of just project your own meaning. You think, oh, this guy's seen some shit. So I think at the end of the day, just some parting words. If you're quiet, and whether you're confident or not, never let anyone tell you that you need to change who you are. Like, you need to become a different type of person, because I'm quiet, I'm introverted. I don't let people box me in. I can do anything that an extroverted person can. It's taken me a bit longer. And I would say it's worthwhile developing the skills to be able to step into both roles, to be able to do like the public facing bit. Don't necessarily like it all the time, but I can hold a good conversation. You know, I've practiced enough to the point where, you know, I can be that kind of quiet, confident presence and feel okay with that. It takes a while to get there, but it's worth practicing and pushing things out your social comfort zone, just for the fact that you can one day own this quiet side of your personality. All these experiences have taught me that actually I don't need to fucking embody some salesman personality, or I don't need to be like Matthew McConaughey. I don't need to be like really charming, always know the right thing to say. I can be relaxed, chill, not super talkative, and still be successful and experience the same things an extrovert can. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope that was reassuring for you. Own your quiet confidence.